It was June 4th, a Tuesday. I remember because I was cleaning out the fridge when I got the call from Megan. Her voice was flat, distant. She said, "Just so you know, we're not doing anything for your birthday this year. It's not personal, Linda. It's just, we've had a lot of expenses. Hope you understand." Before I could respond, she added, "And don't expect gifts. We won't spend even a penny. You're not a child. You're a grown woman. A greedy one sometimes, if I'm being honest." I stood there, holding a container of old potato salad, listening to my own daughter-in-law humiliate me without a shred of shame. I didn't say anything. I hung up. My hands were trembling. Later that day, out of some strange instinct, I opened my banking app. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. My son, Derek, handled most of my online statements since the stroke I had 2 years ago. He set up auto payments for utilities, groceries, even medication deliveries. I trusted him. Hold on a moment before we move forward. Let us know where in the world you're watching from. And if you're loving these stories, don't forget to hit subscribe. Tomorrow's episode is going to be absolutely mind-blowing, but the app had a travel alert. That's what it said. Card flagged for unusual travel activity. I clicked to see the full list. The charges hit me like a slap. A 5-star resort in Cancun, private beachfront villa, luxury spa treatments, helicopter tour, totaling over $50,000, all within 9 days. All on my card. I sat down on the kitchen floor, still holding my phone. I wasn't breathing right. They told me they couldn't afford a simple birthday dinner, and they were sipping champagne in another country using my money. I didn't even know where to begin. I stared at those transactions for what felt like an hour. One charge after another, none of them subtle. This wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate. I could feel it in my gut. They didn't even bother to hide it. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, looking at the ceiling, replaying every conversation I'd had with Derek and Megan over the past 6 months. The time they said their car broke down, and I paid $3,000 for repairs. The time Megan said they couldn't pay daycare and I covered 2 months. The mortgage help, the groceries, the emergency dentist bill. I had been bleeding money for them, and now, I was being called greedy. The worst part wasn't the money. It was the complete disregard, the coldness. I waited until the next day to call Derek. My voice was steady, but inside, I was already unraveling. I asked, simply, "Derek, where are you?" He paused, then, a fake cough. We're at home, just doing some cleaning." "Really?" I said, because I just checked the charges on my credit card. Silence. "Are you in Mexico, Derek?" More silence. Then, "Mom, listen," I hung up. I didn't want explanations. I wanted to think, to breathe. I walked around the house, past the family photos still hanging in the hallway. Derek's high school graduation, his wedding with Megan smiling next to him. And then my favorite, me, Derek, and his father, smiling by the lake, long before Megan was in the picture. I took that one down. I sat in the living room for hours after that. I didn't eat. I didn't cry. I was numb. I had given them everything, not just money. I gave up my house and moved into the smaller back unit on the property so they could raise their family in the main home. I transferred the car to Derek's name when he said they couldn't afford a new one. I signed for their second mortgage when Megan wanted to renovate the kitchen. I kept waiting for love, for appreciation, but they only saw me as a line of credit. That night, something inside me hardened. No more. They were still away on their luxury vacation. Their trip was supposed to end on Sunday. I had 4 days to take my life back, and I wasn't going to waste a single hour. The next morning, I went to my bank in person. I brought all the printed statements. The woman at the counter was patient, kind. She helped me lock the account, file a fraud report, and issue new cards. I explained that I had not authorized the charges. I didn't have to lie, because I truly hadn't. Next, I drove straight to the courthouse. I didn't know what I was doing exactly. I just needed legal advice. A young clerk gave me a number to call for a pro bono elder law clinic. I called from the parking lot. They scheduled me for the next day. Thursday afternoon, I met with an attorney named Jessica. She listened, took notes, didn't interrupt. When I told her that the house was still under my name despite the gift, her eyebrows lifted. I showed her the deed, the car title, the banking transfers. She leaned forward and said, "You're not powerless. They've been exploiting you, and we can build a case." That night, for the first time in months, I slept. On Friday, I called a locksmith. Quietly, I had the front door locks of the main house changed. I had every right. The deed was still in my name. Megan had been pressuring me to transfer the property fully to them, but I never did. Something inside me must have known. By Sunday afternoon, the house was quiet. Their flight was supposed to land around 6 p.m. At 6:15 p.m., I sat in the back unit with the lights off, waiting. I heard their car pull into the driveway, heard the keys jangle, then the sudden pounding on the front door. "Mom?" Derek's voice, confused, then louder. "Why is the lock changed?" Megan's voice cut through his. "What the hell is this?" I didn't move. I didn't open the door. I just let them sit in the mess they created. My phone buzzed nonstop for the next 2 hours. Calls, texts, Megan shouting in voicemails, Derek begging, threatening, apologizing in loops. I didn't answer. They didn't realize it yet, but their entire safety net was gone, and that was just the beginning. The banging on the front door didn't stop until almost 10 p.m. That first night, I didn't respond once. I sat at the little kitchen table in my unit behind the main house, sipping tea that had gone cold hours ago. The phone kept buzzing. Derek called 13 times. Megan left 8 voicemails, each one louder and more hostile than the last. I didn't listen to all of them, but the few I did made my stomach turn. "This is illegal, Linda. You have no right to do this. You better fix this before we call the police." But they didn't call the police, because deep down, they knew exactly what they had done. That night, I locked the doors and bolted the windows. I didn't feel fear. I felt alert. I felt awake. For the first time in years, I wasn't just reacting. I was choosing. The next morning, I woke up at 5:30 a.m. I opened the window to a gray sky and silence. I didn't hear them in the driveway. No yelling, no pounding. I made coffee and checked my phone. A new message from Derek. "Mom, please, just talk to us. Megan's upset. The kids don't understand what's happening. You're scaring everyone." There it was, the guilt card. Except I didn't feel guilty. I made toast, sat at the table again, and pulled out the folder Jessica had given me at the elder law clinic. Inside were copies of the deed, mortgage statements, the notarized letter from years ago where I stated that while Derek and Megan could live in the house, the property ownership remained mine unless otherwise transferred, which never happened. Jessica had highlighted everything for me in bright yellow. I was on solid ground. That gave me calm. At 7:15 a.m., I stepped out into the yard and found Megan sitting on the porch steps. She was barefoot, wearing oversized sunglasses, even though the sun hadn't come out. Derek was nowhere in sight. She stood when she saw me. "Linda, this has gone too far," she said immediately. Her voice was low, like she was trying to sound reasonable. "Look, I know we've had misunderstandings, but this is insane. You changed the locks while we were out of the country? With our children. You used my card," I said. My voice was flat, not cold, just steady. $50,000. For a trip I didn't know about. And then you called me greedy for asking about my own birthday. Her mouth twitched. "We were going to pay it back." "With what?" I asked. "With the money I already gave you for your kitchen remodel? Or the car I signed over? Or the utilities I've been paying?" She blinked, but didn't respond. I continued. "You called me a greedy old woman. You said that to me on the phone, then used my money to drink champagne in Mexico. You want me to feel bad for changing a lock?" She crossed her arms. "You're blowing this out of proportion. We needed a break. We've been stressed. Derek's been working nonstop, and I've had the kids all day every day. That vacation was supposed to help us reset. You should have paid for it with your own money." Megan's jaw clenched. "We didn't mean harm. I don't care what you meant. I care what you did." She stared at me for a long second, then scoffed and turned away, walking off the porch. I stood there for a few minutes, watching the driveway. No sign of the kids, no Derek, just Megan pacing in circles, pulling out her phone again. Back in my unit, I closed the blinds and sat down with the phone in my lap. Jessica had told me to document everything, so I started writing it all down. Date, time, what was said. I printed out the messages and made copies of every voicemail. At noon, Derek finally came by. He knocked on the back door, just once. I opened it. He looked tired. His hair was messy, and he hadn't shaved. "Can we talk?" he asked. I nodded and let him in. He sat at the table like he used to when he was a teenager, fidgeting with the edge of the placemat. I stood by the counter, arms crossed. He looked up. "I know we messed up." I didn't say anything. He continued. "We shouldn't have used your card without asking. That was wrong. I didn't know Megan booked everything under your account until after we got there, but I didn't stop it either, so I take responsibility too." I nodded once. "I'm sorry, Mom, truly, but I think you're overreacting. We didn't do it to hurt you. We just didn't think." "No," I said. "You didn't think. You haven't been thinking for years. You think money just appears. You think it's normal for me to pay for everything, live in the back like a ghost, and say thank you when I get scraps of attention from my own son." He winced. "I never asked you to pay for all that." "Yes, you did. You and Megan asked every time. And when I said yes, you thanked me like I was a bank, not your mother. And when I said no, you made me feel like I was failing you." He rubbed his face. Okay, I get it. We've leaned too much on you. But locking us out like this? Do you understand what that's doing to the kids? Now it was my turn to scoff. You didn't think of the kids when you blew through $50,000 in luxury expenses. You didn't think of the kids when you left them with me every other weekend while you ran around town. Don't use them now. He looked down. I'm not doing this to punish you, I said. I'm doing this to stop you. There's a difference. He didn't respond. I walked to the drawer and pulled out a typed letter. I handed it to him. What's this? He asked. A 30-day notice. You have 30 days to find another place to live. I'm revoking your permission to stay in the main house. His eyes widened. Are you serious? I've already spoken to a lawyer. The deed is mine. You're not tenants, so I don't have to go through a formal eviction. But I'm giving you 30 days anyway. As a courtesy. He shook his head, almost laughing. Mom, this is insane. No, I said. What was insane was letting it go this far. What was insane was letting you and Megan think that love means giving until there's nothing left. I'm done, Derek. He stood up slowly, folding the paper in his hand. I guess we'll talk later. I nodded. You know the way out. After he left, I closed the door and sat back down. My hands were shaking, but I didn't cry. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt quiet, like something heavy had finally been set down. But I knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot. They still had 30 days, and people like Megan don't leave quietly. The morning after I handed Derek the notice, I woke up to silence. No knocks, no messages. For a moment, I thought maybe they understood. Maybe they'd finally accepted that the free ride was over. That hope didn't last long. By noon, the car that used to be mine, the silver SUV I signed over to Derek when he said they couldn't afford new payments, was parked diagonally in the driveway, blocking both the garage and the small gate that led to my unit. Megan stood beside it, arms crossed, pacing and pretending to talk on the phone. I stayed inside and watched through the blinds. Her voice was loud enough for me to hear. Yeah, she's still acting crazy, she said. We're talking about an old woman who's losing it. She's trying to evict us. Can you believe that? She kept her back turned to my window, but every few seconds, she glanced toward the house, toward me. I knew she was doing it for show. Maybe she thought I'd be too embarrassed to keep going if the neighbors saw drama unfolding in the driveway. Maybe she hoped I'd cave. I didn't. Instead, I called the non-emergency police line. The officer on the phone was polite and professional. I told him that a car registered under my son's name was blocking access to my private unit. I explained that I had served notice, and that I had the title of the property in my name. The officer said someone would come by. 20 minutes later, a squad car pulled into the cul-de-sac. Megan rushed to meet the officer before he even got out of the car. I watched her from the window, waving her hands, pointing at my unit, trying to paint the story her way. It didn't work. When the officer rang my bell, I opened the door and handed him the folder with everything Jessica had helped me organize. Deed, letter, statement of property rights, and the 30-day notice I'd given in writing. He reviewed everything carefully. Then he asked, "Would you like us to ask them to move the vehicle today?" "Yes," I said. "Please, and let them know I'll be keeping a log from this point forward." The officer nodded. 15 minutes later, Megan was fuming as she stomped back to the car. I saw her mouth the words, "Are you serious?" to the officer, but she moved the SUV. It was a small victory, but one I needed. That evening, Derek texted, "Why are you doing this, Mom? Why are you treating us like criminals?" I didn't reply. Instead, I called Jessica. We spoke for nearly an hour. I told her everything that had happened since the notice. The car, the comments, the tension. She said it was textbook behavior. Entitlement always escalates before it breaks. Stick to the 30 days, she said. Don't engage emotionally. Don't negotiate anything without it being in writing. Document everything. So I did. I kept a little spiral notebook by the kitchen counter. Every interaction, every knock on the door, every text, even the tone of voice. I wrote it all down. On day 4, they sent the kids to knock on my door. It was around dinner time when I heard the tapping, not loud, hesitant. When I opened it, I saw Ellie, my 9-year-old granddaughter, standing there with a paper plate covered in foil. "Mom said I should bring this to you," she said. "What is it?" She shrugged. "Leftover enchiladas." I looked out toward the driveway. Megan was standing by the garage, arms folded, pretending not to watch. "Thank you, sweetie," I said gently, "but I'm okay." Ellie frowned. "Grandma, are you mad at Mommy?" I knelt down. "I'm not mad at anyone, honey, but sometimes grown-ups have to figure things out between them. It's not your fault, okay?" She nodded, unsure, then turned and walked back, the foil-topped plate still in her hands. I closed the door and locked it. That night, I cried for the first time since this all started. Not because I regretted what I was doing, but because Ellie was just a child, and she didn't understand that her parents had created this mess. I hated that she was being pulled into it. Day 6, Megan posted a photo of herself and the kids at a cafe downtown with the caption, "Needed a break from chaos. Grateful for real family." It wasn't subtle. The comments started rolling in. Sending love. Some people never appreciate what they have. You're doing amazing, Megan. Don't let toxic people steal your peace. She wanted sympathy. She was painting herself as the victim, the young mom battling her toxic mother-in-law. It didn't matter that I was the one who paid the cafe bill. The same card she claimed had been closed out of spite was still linked to their food delivery account. They were still using it. I hadn't shut everything down yet. I was trying to be gradual, but now, I was done being gradual. I logged into my online banking and froze every single card they had access to. I called customer service and revoked Derek's user status from my accounts. I contacted the utility companies and removed their names from all shared bills. Then I had the passwords changed for every online service I had. I spent the whole day handling it, and at the end of it, I felt something that scared me more than anger. I felt relief. That night, Megan knocked on my door herself. She wasn't yelling. She wasn't crying. She was smiling. "Can we talk?" she asked, as if nothing had happened. I didn't answer at first. I just stared at her. Then I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. She held her hands in front of her. "Look, I know we've had tension lately, and I said some things I shouldn't have, but maybe we can find a way through this that doesn't involve lawyers and all this ugliness." "Did you mean what you said on the phone?" I asked. "That I was a greedy old woman?" She hesitated. It was heat of the moment. I was frustrated. "You said it before the trip." She blinked. "Okay, yes, I said it, but people say things. You said it and then spent $50,000 of my money. That wasn't all me." "No," I said. "It wasn't, but it was enough." She took a breath. "So what now? You want us out, is that it? You have 24 more days, and after that, you'll find somewhere else." She laughed without humor. "You really think we can do that? After you've been paying for everything for years? You created this dependency, Linda. You enabled us." That hit hard, because there was truth in it, but I didn't back down. "I did," I said. "I made mistakes. I thought I was helping, but I was being used, and that's done now." She stared at me for a long second. "Derek's going to want to fight this," she said. "Then he can talk to my lawyer." I turned and walked back inside, closed the door. It took a full minute before I heard her steps retreating down the walkway. I didn't sleep well that night. I tossed and turned, thinking of the kids, wondering if I was doing the right thing. But in the morning, when I woke up to my own coffee, in my own silence, I remembered what Jessica said. "You're not punishing them, you're protecting yourself." And for once, that was enough. By day 10, the silence started to feel heavier than the arguments. There was no yelling, no dramatic knocks on the door. Derek and Megan stopped calling. The messages stopped. I hadn't seen the kids in 2 days, and for a while, I let myself believe it meant they were accepting the situation and making arrangements to leave. That illusion didn't last. On day 11, I got a knock at 8 a.m. It wasn't Megan, and it wasn't Derek. It was a woman I had never seen before, tall, with a thin face, wearing oversized sunglasses and a stiff white blazer. She introduced herself as Valerie, Megan's aunt. "I heard there's been a misunderstanding," she said. "I didn't invite her in." I stood in the doorway, arms crossed. She smiled politely, like she was talking to someone unstable. "I just thought maybe I could offer a little outside perspective. I've known Megan since she was a child, and she's been under a lot of stress." I didn't answer. I didn't need her to finish. I knew where this was going. She continued. "When a family reaches a point like this, sometimes it's better to take a step back, not escalate things. Derek and Megan are young parents. They're still learning. They made some financial mistakes, yes, but Megan told me you've been part of their household for years. They see you like a second mother to their children." I stared at her for a moment. Then I said, "Did Megan tell you she used my credit card for a $50,000 vacation after calling me a greedy old woman?" Valerie blinked. "That's not how she explained it." "I'm sure it's not." She shifted in place. "Look, I'm not here to judge anyone, but removing them from their home, it's not their home," I interrupted. "The deed is in my name. I never signed it over. They live here because I let them, and now I don't." Her lips tightened. "But for the sake of the children, don't use the children," I said. "Everyone keeps throwing the children at me like they're shields, but no one seems to care that they're being raised in a house where lying and stealing from your own mother is acceptable behavior." She was quiet for a second. "Okay," she said, tone cooling. "I've said my part. You can tell Megan not to send anyone else," I said. "If she has something to say, she can say it herself." But nothing's changing. Valerie didn't answer. She just nodded and walked off the porch. I watched her climb into her black SUV and drive off. 2 hours later, Derek tried again, this time through guilt. He texted, I talked to the school counselor. Ellie's been crying in class. She thinks you don't love her anymore. It hit hard, but I didn't reply. Instead, I called Jessica. She listened, then said, they're escalating to pressure tactics. Emotional leverage. Don't respond emotionally. Keep documenting everything. So I wrote it all down. Day 12, they turned up the heat. Literally. They cranked the thermostat up to 90 in the main house. We shared the same HVAC system, so I felt it in my unit. I woke up sweating and checked the wall unit. It was locked. Derek had installed one of those digital thermostats years ago. Said it would save money. I didn't argue at the time because it didn't matter back then. Now it did. I knocked on the main door. No answer. I knocked again. Finally, Megan opened it, smirking. Can I help you? Turn the thermostat down, I said. She shrugged. It's set to what's comfortable for the kids. They're not home. You're doing this on purpose. I think you're just sensitive to heat. Maybe it's your age. I took a slow breath. You turn it down, I repeated, or I'll contact the utility company and have the entire HVAC unit shut down, permanently. She held my gaze for a second longer than necessary. Then she smiled. Fine, we'll adjust it. It dropped back to 72 degrees within the hour. Day 13, I found garbage bags dumped behind my unit. Loose trash, food scraps, plastic containers, used diapers. I had a small fenced space behind the guest unit I used for potted plants and a chair where I sat in the afternoons. Now it smelled like a landfill. I didn't confront them. I took photos. Then I emailed Jessica. She responded within 20 minutes. Good. Keep everything. If they refuse to leave after the 30-day notice, we'll file a formal unlawful detainer claim. You're building a solid pattern of harassment. Stay calm. I didn't say anything to Derek or Megan that day. I didn't return the trash. I just kept to myself. Day 14, the second week, I finally saw Ellie again. She was walking home from the bus stop with her younger brother, Tyler. He's only 5. She looked tired. I was outside checking the mail. She hesitated, then walked up to me. Grandma, she said quietly, are we in trouble? I knelt down beside her. No, sweetheart, you're not in trouble. She looked confused. Is mommy mad at you? I nodded slowly. A little. But that's something we'll figure out. It's not about you, okay? She hugged me tight. I hadn't expected that. I miss when we used to do puzzles, she said. Tyler does too. I felt my throat tighten, but I just hugged her back. I miss it too. Megan came out onto the porch then. Ellie, inside, now. Ellie didn't move for a second. Then she pulled back from me and walked away. That night, Derek left a letter at my door. A real letter, not a text. It read, Mom, you've made your point. But I think you're forgetting that we're family. You raised me to believe that family doesn't throw each other away. Maybe Megan and I made some mistakes. Maybe we leaned on you too much. But is that really something you kick your own son out over? We're willing to talk. But you have to meet us halfway. Derek, I folded it up and placed it in the folder with everything else. I wasn't forgetting that we were family, but I also wasn't forgetting that family doesn't treat you like a wallet. Family doesn't insult you on your birthday and then spend $50,000 of your money while pretending they're struggling. Family doesn't weaponize children or manipulate outsiders to shame you into submission. Derek wanted me to meet halfway. But he never asked once how I felt when I found out. He never apologized for the words Megan used. He never said thank you for the years I gave up my peace so they could have theirs. So no, I wasn't going to meet halfway. I was going to follow through. 16 days left, and I knew they were running out of time and ideas. By day 15, Megan had shifted strategies. The stairs, the trash, the thermostat games, they stopped. Suddenly, she was pleasant, not warm, not apologetic, just strangely cheerful. She smiled when she passed me in the driveway, waved when I came out to check the mail. One afternoon, she was outside clipping dead leaves off the shrubs in front of the house and even called out, "Looks like we'll have a dry weekend." Huh? I didn't answer. It was the kind of behavior that would have looked polite to a neighbor watching from across the street. But I knew better. It wasn't kindness. It was control. A way to imply that things weren't as bad as they seemed. That I was the one acting irrational. That weekend, I started to feel watched. It was small things at first. Subtle. Every time I opened my blinds, one of them happened to be in the yard. Derek standing by the garbage bins. Megan brushing off her car windshield. Always within view of my window. Always glancing over. Just enough to be noticed, never enough to be confronted. Sunday afternoon, I left to pick up groceries. I was gone maybe 40 minutes. When I came back, I found the door to my unit slightly open. Not kicked in, not forced, just left ajar. Nothing was missing, nothing broken. But a folded piece of paper sat on the kitchen counter. It wasn't handwritten. It was printed. "We're not leaving. You're sick. You're unstable. If you push this, we'll involve the courts and file for guardianship. You shouldn't be living alone. No signature. No name. Just that." I I sat down. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't even surprised. But something inside me snapped, quietly, like a frayed wire finally giving out. I picked up my phone and called Jessica. She didn't answer on the first try, but called back 20 minutes later. I told her everything. The note, the door, the new behavior. Okay, she said calmly, that changes things. We need to be proactive now. She walked me through the next steps. First, we filed a police report for unauthorized entry. There was no forced break-in, so it wouldn't be a criminal charge yet, but it documented the escalation. Second, she helped me set up a formal letter of cease and desist, warning of legal action in case of continued intimidation or harassment. Third, she referred me to a home security company. By Tuesday afternoon, I had cameras installed on the front and back doors of my unit, one aimed at the shared driveway, and another watching the garden area. I didn't tell Derek or Megan about the cameras. I wanted them to show their true selves, and they did. By day 17, I caught Megan taking photos of my unit's door. At 9:42 p.m., she stood there for at least 4 minutes, pacing slowly, glancing at the camera lens without realizing it was active. The next morning, I got an email from a woman named Janice, a former colleague of mine from the church committee. Janice's email was full of concern. Linda, I got a message from Megan. She said you've been having some memory issues and might be putting yourself at risk. She said she's considering asking for help from the county to intervene. Is everything okay? My throat went dry. They weren't just trying to manipulate me directly. They were planting seeds outside the house, smearing me, framing me as mentally unstable, so if I pushed any harder, they'd have proof that I couldn't manage my own life. I didn't reply to Janice right away. Instead, I saved the email, took a screenshot of the security footage showing Megan snooping around the door. Then I printed it and added it to the growing binder. Day 18, I got a certified letter from an attorney's office. Derek had hired someone. The letter accused me of emotional manipulation, retaliatory eviction, and neglectful behavior toward minor dependents. It was a bluff, and Jessica confirmed it. They're trying to intimidate you, she said. Don't respond to the letter. I'll draft something official on our end. That night, I heard yelling from the main house, not directed at me. Derek and Megan were arguing, loud. Through the vents, I could hear pieces. She won't back down, Derek. She's your mother. Do something. We should have had her sign that transfer years ago. I sat quietly on the couch. I didn't smile. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt tired. Day 20, the game stopped again. The silence returned. It was worse than the shouting. They started avoiding me. No eye contact. No conversación. They kept the blinds closed all day. I knew what that meant. They were planning something else. And I didn't have to wait long. On day 21, Megan cornered me in the driveway. She looked calmer than I'd seen her in days. Dressed neatly, hair done, lipstick perfect. She smiled. Hi, Linda, she said. Can I walk with you for a second? I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I kept walking, and she fell in beside me. I just wanted to say that I think this has all gone too far, she said. None of us want to drag this out, especially not for the kids. I didn't answer. She went on, so here's what I'm proposing. You drop the eviction. We write up a new agreement, one that gives us formal tenancy. We'll pay a symbolic rent, $1, maybe, just so you feel protected. And in exchange, you leave us alone. No more lawyers, no more threats. We stay, you stay, separate lives. I stopped walking, then I turned to her. And if I say no? She smiled again. Well, then things get messy, not just legally, emotionally, publicly. You don't want that. Let me be clear, I said. You are leaving this house. You have 9 days, and if you're not out by then, I will move forward with every legal option available. Her smile didn't move. You really want your granddaughter to see all this? The woman who raised her father throwing them onto the street. You already did that, I said. The day you used my money behind my back. The day you let your kids think I abandoned them. For once, she didn't have a comeback. She turned and walked away. No more fake smiles. No more pleasantries. Just silence again. The calm before the last stretch. 9 days left. And I wasn't backing down. Day 22 came and went with no confrontation. No messages. No car blocking the driveway. The air felt different. Not peaceful. Not yet, but quieter. Tense in a different way. They had stopped the intimidation. But that didn't mean they were finished. By day 24, I received another letter. This time from the county's Adult Protective Services. It was a formal notice stating they had received an anonymous complaint claiming I was showing signs of cognitive decline and possibly suffering from self-neglect. They were requesting a wellness check and a visit within the week. I called Jessica immediately. They're trying to corner you legally, she said. They're hoping a state agency will declare you unfit. then they can use that to file for guardianship or block the eviction. But you're not alone in this. Let them come. You've documented everything. You're prepared. The wellness check was scheduled for Friday morning, day 26. I cleaned the unit thoroughly, gathered all the documents, and printed out my medication list, my most recent doctor's visit, and my clean bill of health from last month. I even had my primary physician write a letter confirming I was fully capable of managing my own affairs. The woman from APS, Marissa, showed up right on time. Middle-aged, polite, no nonsense. She walked in, introduced herself, and explained that the complaint was anonymous but serious enough to require follow-up. She asked if I was okay, if I had enough food, if I felt safe. I do now, I said. She asked if I'd recently been under stress. I showed her the folder. I told her, without drama, that my son and daughter-in-law had been living in my home without paying a cent, and that when I asked for boundaries, they retaliated. I showed her the printed emails, the footage screenshots, the lawyer's letters. She spent an hour with me. At the end, she shook her head and said, "You're more organized than I am." I asked if they'd be following up with the complainant. "We usually don't disclose outcomes," she said. "But I will tell you this much, if they were trying to discredit you, it didn't work." That night, for the first time in nearly a month, I slept straight through. By day 28, the tension in the air was gone, replaced by movement. Megan was carrying boxes. Derek was hauling bags out to the trunk. They weren't smiling. They weren't talking, but they were finally packing. I stayed inside. I didn't gloat. I didn't offer help. I just watched quietly from the back window, sipping my coffee while they loaded their belongings into a car that I had once paid off for them. I expected them to drag it out until the last second. But on day 29, something changed. I was sitting on the back steps when Derek approached. Alone. He looked worn out. His eyes were tired, his shoulders hunched. He stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets. "We'll be out tomorrow morning," he said. "We're staying with Megan's cousin for now." I nodded. "All right." He hesitated, then said, "I didn't want it to end like this." "Neither did I." He looked down. "I didn't know how much I was relying on you. I think I convinced myself it was mutual. Like, you were helping because you wanted to. Like it didn't cost you anything." "It did," I said. "I know," he said. "I didn't before, but I do now." There was a long pause. "I should have protected you from her," he added. "That wasn't my choice to make," I said. "You picked the life you wanted. I picked mine back." He nodded, slowly. Can I call you sometimes? Just me? If it's honest," I said. He nodded again, and walked away. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just breathed. The next morning, I watched from the kitchen window as they drove away. The SUV turned out of the driveway at 9:13 a.m. I waited 10 minutes, just in case. Then I walked to the front of the house. It was quiet, empty. I walked into the main house for the first time in nearly 4 weeks. The air was stale. The couch was gone. Some cabinets were still half open. The refrigerator door had been left slightly ajar. I closed it. Room by room, I walked through the space. I didn't inspect for damage. I didn't check for missing items. I just walked. The silence felt strange, but not heavy. It felt clean. Later that afternoon, the locksmith came. I had the locks changed again, not as an act of revenge, just to close the loop. When he was done, I stood on the porch, holding the new keys in my hand. The sun was just starting to set. I walked back into the kitchen and sat down. No one called. No one knocked. And for the first time in years, there was no version of me waiting for something to go wrong. A few days later, Ellie left a small envelope in my mailbox. It was written in crayon. "Dear Grandma, I miss you. I don't understand everything, but I still love you. I hope we can do puzzles again someday. Love, Ellie." I sat at the table with the letter in my hands for a long time. Then I picked up the phone and called Jessica. "I want to write a new will," I said. "And I want to do it properly this time, with boundaries, with protection." "You ready for that?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "I'm not giving anything away ever again. They'll have to earn it, every bit of it." And with that, the life I had funded, the one they thought they were entitled to, was gone. They walked out thinking they'd find another way to live off someone else. But I walked back and ready to live for myself. No more silence, no more guilt, only what I chose to give, and what I finally chose to keep.